We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend, and where we try to put a positive spin on a press conference that, I've got to be honest, left us all scratching our heads today. We never often get a great deal out of Eddie Howe's press conferences, but boy, did we all get different things out of that today. As always, plenty to get through. We do have the lookalikes, we do have Tweet of the Week, we do have that wonderful music on the day I met, and we will squeeze in an Elliot Slesser joke a little bit later on as well. We'll be looking ahead to the Bournemouth game, of course, which kicks off 2 o'clock on Sunday on Sky. And again, probably talking about transfers and taking a few questions from your wonderful questions in the chat, which I can see are already starting to build up. And just want to thank everybody as well who has purchased already a subscription for the NUFC Matters fanzine. Some great articles. Mitch, me, Steve, I'm sure Joe might pitch in with something. George has already chucked one in. Super Max chucked one in as well. There's going to be a bit of everything in there from everybody. It's 20 quid for 4 issues. First issue is out on the 1st of October. But yeah, feel free to go to newcastlelegends.com. All proceeds are going to the Dementia Matters charity, which we're supporting this year. And that means that it's going to be 100% profit because Beverly United Group Travel has agreed to sponsor all 4 issues and pay the printing bill, which is very kind of us. So get yourself onto the website, newcastlelegends.com, go to the shop, and if you can, chuck 20 quid into the pot to buy that, and you'll get 4 excellent fanzines. Only going to be 200, so it is going to be limited edition, and it is the only print fanzine at this moment in time. Don't be surprised if people then suddenly start making print fanzines. Did it here first. George, anyway, let's talk about Eddie's press conference today. I love them. I do enjoy them, even though 9 times out of 10 we get very little from them. And I listened to that today, and I do listen to what our viewers say. Now, I could have probably read some of this out, but because the last time I read one of Eddie's press conferences out, people were going, "Well, you've made it sound a certain way. That's not the way I found it." So yeah. I thought I'll give you my opinion, and then I'll listen to your opinions, and we can all draw our own conclusions. But my view on that today was, he's not a happy chap, and he's not happy at all because he's still got a bee in his bonnet about Elliot Anderson and Minte being sold. He clearly didn't want to lose either of those players. He clearly wanted to at least look at Minte. I don't think he wanted to get rid of Elliot Anderson at all. So he always points to June being a month that he was most disappointed. He's gone on record now today as saying this is the worst transfer window that he's had at Newcastle, most disappointing transfer window he's had at Newcastle. So there's another first. He was then pushed, and listening to Lee Ryder's little bit that Steve Hasty shared with us in the WhatsApp group, he was pushed by the media and asked about the Kieran Trippier situation. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but quite a few more times besides that. And that's become an issue. That's now become a Newcastle United issue because certain media are putting stories out about it being a fallout over the captaincy. My reading of the whole thing with Trippier is he nearly went in January. It's quite clear that the club want to sell him. We've been pushing that line on this podcast, I think, with confidence that Trippier wants to go. We won't delve into what's going on in his personal life. I think we can all read between the lines that there's been trouble at mill at home. But ultimately, there is an issue with Trippier, which means that he's clearly wanting to go to another club. Now, I just think that's all been turned on its head this week by the media. And I think Eddie had to bat that off today, which wasn't great. What wasn't really reported much this week was that Eddie did have a big get-together of players and family at the club. He had a barbecue, I believe, at the ground this week, at the training ground, if my information's correct, which was a harmonious occasion where everyone got on. And you see it all the time. The lads do the photo at the end of the match. Everyone's there. Trippier was there. Wilson was there. I think there's been a lot made of people being unhappy when clearly that's not the case. The other thing that was, of course, a bolt from the blue today was Louise Taylor's question about Tonali. And he clearly didn't like that. He was very annoyed at that question. And I think he had every right to be. I think the question was bang on order. Tonali's committed a faux pas, a major faux pas on his behalf. It's something which is, as we've spoken on this before, it's an addiction, and it's something which he needs regular help for. It's not suddenly something that you get cured for. I think there was a complete misreading of the room from Louise Taylor on that particular question. I think the way it was asked was wrong. If you could be reprimanded for it, you should have been. But the fact that she then pushed the issue and more or less suggested, that are Newcastle going to be keeping tabs on him, now that once he comes back, I just think it was wrong. And I just think the questions that he got asked probably gives an impression that he's clearly not happy. He's not happy with the transfer window, and who would be? He hasn't got the players in that he wanted, quite clearly. And there has been a distinct change at the club, a huge change at the club. Amanda's gone, Mirdad's gone, the people who brought him to the club, the people whose ear he had, and he clearly had a certain relationship with them with regards to bringing, first of all, putting potential targets on a board and then potentially bringing them in and whatever. He's told us today, and again, his words, that he's a step away from that now and that he doesn't do that anymore. And he actually used the words, "I'm just a coach today." So there's a huge change. There's a huge change there today. Now, what Eddie Howe has done with that press conference, he's given the tabloids now carte blanche for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to really know what they want. They got so much out of that Eddie Howe press conference today. The press like piranhas will feast on that for a few days. There is so much there, and now, as we know as Newcastle fans, this club, this mental club of ours, and our fan base, a lot depends now, as it always does, on the results. It depends on what happens at Bournemouth, at Forest, and then at home to Spurs. And Lee Ryder, who doesn't often get a chance to ask key questions, said he more or less described this as a big week. Well, it is a big week. It shouldn't be a big week. It's only we've only had one game, but already because of our club and the way it is and the way that people are, it's a huge week. It's a huge week. We've got Bournemouth away. If we get beaten tomorrow, we got beat at Bournemouth last season, not the end of the world. But then we'll go to Forest midweek. If we get knocked out of the cup by Forest, and then suddenly it's a huge game against Spurs, and that's what this press conference has done. It's changed the whole dimensions. And again, what happens with Mark Gahey is, and again, the chat's full of Mark Gahey questions. But if that transfer doesn't go through, Eddie's got to deal with that. What happens next? We've already located X, Y, and Z other options, but is that what Eddie wanted? Does Eddie want Gahey that much? Then we're going to have people saying, well, we haven't got enough money now for a right winger. We need a right winger. It's already creating a storm. There's a storm brewing, and it's hovering over Newcastle. And it's so difficult to try and be positive. And then you look at last week's result. We've all talked about it this week. Every show we discuss last week's performance. We're moving on now. We're looking ahead to Bournemouth. But we're now looking, you look back at last week and think, wasn't a great performance. We weren't playing well before the sending off. Look at the stats. Newcastle didn't play well. Yeah, we kept a clean sheet. We got 3 points. But yeah, we're starting to get into this kind of zone again already. And we've only played one game, George. So that press conference for me, not very often I have my say at the start of the programme, but I felt I had to get all that off my chest about how I'm feeling. I think that was a major press conference. I think it's probably the biggest one he's given. I think we've got lots from it. And not all of it shines a positive light on what's going on at the football club at the moment. So what did you make of it, George?
Well, you've described it perfectly. For me, the other thing I'd add into the mix is that you were talking about the Gahey transfer and this happening and that happening. And can I point you to the Anthony Gordon transfer when Everton were trying to play silly buggers, and a certain lady went down and said, 40 million or nothing. And guess what? We've got Anthony Gordon. That's not what happened at Palace. They've just taken the mickey without swearing about it. The positive for me, this is a positive I keep saying as a fan, the positive for me, we now got a manager for once spoke like a fan. His frustrations were our frustrations. They weren't just his. He was just speaking for how I felt and how lots of other fans felt, I'm certain. You lads know how unhappy I was about those two young'uns going out of the club to satisfy the balance on PSR. Well, I still think that was because they gambled and got it wrong. I still think they gambled that Bruno would go for 100. It didn't happen. So they had to get rid of somebody. And the two young ones went. And the sort of clips I've seen of Minty at Brighton since he went give cause for concern because he's playing out of his skin for them and banging goals in as well. So yeah, all of that's annoying. But it doesn't take me back to that the press conference when I made the faux pas of saying that Mitchell had said in my team. Well, he didn't say it about Newcastle United. He said it about Tottenham, and I misquoted him, and I apologise for that. On the other hand, I've heard nothing since that suggests that the relationship between him and Eddie Howe is any better. He's still behaving as though it's his team. And Eddie Howe comes out today and says, well, he's a step away from all of that. Really? Is he suddenly that change? And that change could be instrumental in changing how the dynamics of the whole team go. I can confirm I had a barbecue because I could smell it in my bloody back garden, wafting over the railway lines. And obviously they were having a good time because you could hear them as well. That's always a good sign from over there, that if you can hear them, something positive's happening. And the other things coming out of it, he's knockbacks about Trippier. He's irritated by it, but he's the tributes he paid to him and the way he defended him and all that sort of thing suggests to me that Trippier's not going anywhere. And as regards Trippier's person, like, good God, it's an open secret that if it's got two legs and it walks, it's allegedly.
That's your opinion, George, not the opinion of the channel.
Yes, allegedly. So, none of that's a surprise to most people, I don't think. But again, there's I talked about his happiness or unhappiness. I point to his actions after the cup was presented the other day at that tournament at home. The first person he sought out was Bruno. So nothing's been done on the quiet. It's obviously it was coming. So and he just cemented it, I think, with his actions there. So that's just adds it all. The Tonali thing, really and truly, people can never get grasp of what addiction's like, and I know it's hard, but really and truly, I'd go back to my time as a magistrate, and most of the addicts that whether it be drugs, whether it be gambling, whether it be other things, when asked, and usually asked by the lawyers in court, is what's significant for them. The significant thing for them was getting caught and getting it off their chest and admitting it all. That was the significant things. Now, Tonali's over that. But that means they still have to support him and guide him and all the rest of it. So it's not going to go away. The lady's question really was under the counter. It really wasn't below the belt. It could have been asked in a much more sensible way than she did. I suspect if it would had the fat man still in charge, should have been banned from press conferences after that. But at least we're a bit more tolerant than that. It's a long time since I've seen Eddie Howe get quite so irritated at a press conference as he was today. However, what it does show to me is that while he had his spell away from from football, and he did all his research with coaches and travelled to different clubs and all the rest of it, I suspect as well he's had some media training, because he's handled it far better than he would have done last year. He whatever they throw to him now, he seems to be capable of handling. Even the questions about Saudi Arabia have gone away, because they know he's going to come back with something fairly straight. So big thing is for me, he spoke of his frustrations today. I suspect are the frustrations of 99.9% of the fans who feel exactly the same at the moment. And that he wants Gehi seems likely. On the other hand, my view. Well, if you're going to ask questions about that later, I'll leave that for a minute.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, clearly there's a significant number of the staff in the club want a young guy in Newcastle, and I can understand that. As I said to you all last week and during the week, the value of the player is one thing. The value of the player to the team is a completely different one. And if you can increase the performance of your team by adding one player, then it probably is worth paying over the odds. What I don't like about it is that we've allowed Parish to run the agenda, and that's never very clever. But I think he'll pay for it in the end. So I as I say, share his frustrations, because I guess he was expressing the frustrations that the fans have got, and it is a bit worrying that he feels once removed from where he was before. His ears and eyes in the boardroom have disappeared in Amanda and Mirdad. That's quite clear, and that must be uncomfortable. But I would say the fans as well. The fans' eyes and ears have gone from the boardroom as well, because the lady was always willing to put a fan's view in wherever she was. And that's very important as well. And my last final thing is to go back to our chief executive again, who was exercising his lungs before the match last Saturday. Well, I'm sorry, it smacks too much of the fat man we've just got rid of for me. And
you'll get some criticism in the chats. You'll get some criticism in the chat. People don't like you having a go about him.
I don't give a tinker's cuss. That's how I feel about it. That's what it looks like. I'm sorry, that's what it looks like. And after 70 odd years of supporting the club, I think I'm entitled to say it if I want to. But it doesn't look good. If I could see some evidence that he was doing all sorts of magic things, he could do what he likes, sing what he likes. But I haven't seen it yet. And when I do, I'll be happy. There you are.
Bill Burnett, I think you misunderstood what I meant. Eddie Howe, is quite clearly still putting players forward for, potential signing. However, he did say today that he is a step away from the process. He's not hearing anything about transfers at all. And, that has changed. That's massive. That is a massive change compared to where he was. If you rewind back 12 months and hear him talk about, the Anthony Gordon one, which has been mentioned, the Anthony Gordon transfer, he was involved in that process, He was the one who, he put him forward, and he was clearly involved in negotiations and constant, conversations with Amanda and Maida. So the relationship, is definitely changed, because Eddie has told us today that he is in a different position. And for him to use the words, my job is to coach the players. That is even further removed from what we possibly thought. So he's definitely allowed to put a player forward. There's no doubt about that, Bill. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he has told us today that things have changed. That was his way of doing it. That's his way of getting it across. Yeah, Mitch. I mean, Bill Burnett, and I'm picking Bill out because he's, the way he's put himself across is it's valid. He's just saying that he doesn't like conjecture. He just likes fact, and none of us know the fact. But I'll keep harping on about it. We do know some facts because Eddie's told us some facts today.
Yeah, and probably to stir the pot a little bit more, I think what we're seeing, it's quite clear. Something within our club went sideways during June. We will probably never know, and nor do we really have a right to know what that was. It seems to be connected with the scramble with PSR. It seems to be connected with having to then sell the young players to make sure we hit the target. Whether the perceived plan was that somebody would activate Bruno's clause and that would solve everything, and that hasn't happened, I don't know. I'd like to think that wasn't the thought. That then led to Amanda and Murdad unexpectedly being removed from the situation. And I say unexpectedly, they were always going to go, but this seemed not how the original plan was. Does that mean there's been some sort of night of the long knives within the new structure and people have been fingered for the blame? Whatever's happened, it's caused disruption. And we are now hamstrung a little by that disruption. Because Mitchell then officially comes in and he doesn't have very long. Now, if we've got a world-class manager and a world-class sporting director, I would hope they would find a way to work together for the good of everything. Comments like he's made in the press conference today about being a step away and removed from transfers, that's halfway to throwing somebody under the bus, in my opinion. I've watched the press conference. I've seen a couple of reactions to it. And I'm still trying to sort of work out whether Eddie was just miffed by some ridiculous lines of questioning. That would piss me off, I've got to say. I'd disengage. from a press conference if I was being asked the same thing over and over again. But at the same time, it is a little unsettling because it suddenly feels that there really is some sort of dysfunction within the structure that we have. And that, okay, the structure creates accountability now, but that doesn't seem like that was the same way during the summer and making June so difficult for everybody. The Trippier situation, look, we know for a fact that Trippier was in Munich in January, physically, not just in his head. And we know for a fact that that deal was probably 24, 48 hours away from going through. If you tie that in with conjecture over what's happening with his personal life, and then he went through that terrible sort of 6 weeks where he seemed to make personal mistake after personal mistake and then seemed to lose all concept of what the offside law was. That wasn't a good period for him personally. I think he did very, very well to try and play through it for us. But I suspect his mind's now already elsewhere. And so if that's the case, and there's book value to be had, and if that then also allows further dealings, because I'm convinced we will be dealing in this window right up at the close of it. Some of the comments that Eddie's made, some of the comments that Paul Mitchell's made about, particularly about players becoming available and deals being flexible. So I think that's, I find that bit's encouraging. The Gay deal, which we'll talk about in a bit, I'm sure. Look, I think the point that he brings more than just his pound, shillings, and pence value to the situation, I think is a valid point. And Eddie's done that with a number of players, where initially you thought, well, hang on, and then they've come into the group and they've made a difference. The Tonali question, which I presume was that Louise Taylor who asked the Tonali question.
Oh, yes. Yes,
of course it was. Macam Louise. That was an ignorant question.
Yeah.
That was coming from she obviously is upset that they sold Jack Clark, so she thought she decided to take it out on Eddie Howe the day with a probably close to one of the most ignorant questions I think I've ever heard asked in a press conference. To quote another YouTuber, an utter disgrace. I think it was really bad form. Doesn't even cover it for me. Should have got less than short shrift off me. I think I'd have got quite angry at about that. That shows a level of ignorance about how about a number of things, and it shows a distinct lack of humanity, if you ask me. Lee Raider's response to in comments after the press conference that he recorded from his car after, I find interesting, because when he's scratching his head and going, hold on a minute, then you know there's something vibing in that room. But at the same time, Eddie very rarely gives much away, one way or the other. And so, are we reading, or do we have the potential to read too much into it? Yeah. But I think today was distinctly different in tone to other press conferences when we know Eddie's not been happy. Because usually that's been about performance, I would imagine. And so, and also people saying why we're persistent with Gay and why aren't we pursuing this or that. I think another valid point made, I saw flash across the strap line. Last season, our problem was conceding goals. It wasn't scoring goals. Even if we weren't to add to a front line, we proved last season there's enough firepower there. It's stopping the goals was the problem last season. And so we're better strengthening where we know we have been short last year. And then adding to the front line with a what you would call maybe a more value signing. But again, particularly if Eddie is keen to keep his group together and is keen to not let Almiron go and keen to use Murphy, who's had a great pre-season, it's concerning because there's a definite perceptible change in tone. That's what I think's upsetting about it. And I wish I had some answers. I don't think I ever will.
Yeah, Steve, obviously the chat, I wouldn't say it's split down the middle. I think, lots of people are just probably searching for the answers within like we are. It's not very often that we listen to an Eddie Howe press conference and have time to review it, because literally it's just same old, respect for the opposition, reflection on who's available and who isn't. Obviously, if the transfer window is open, any updates? No. And that's usually it. I don't even think we had a question about the Bournemouth game this week in the press conference. We had 30 odd minutes of questions about Kieran Trippier's captaincy and the group of players within who are the leadership group. So it was a rather strange one. So that's the reason I thought it was important tonight to really start with this, just to try and make some sense of it, and just to gauge your opinions.
Yeah, I think word of the week is conjecture. I think that's the word that's going to be echoing.
Bill Burnett nailed it.
Absolutely. I mean, let's take it at the beginning. There, lots of people are saying that Gooey is Eddie's number one target. Is that conjecture? Because I can't remember hearing Eddie saying, "Yeah, we're definitely going for this player." That's the first thing I would say. I said I've never heard Eddie say it, to be perfectly honest, but somebody I'm sure will correct us. Eddie's words on Trippier were rather odd. Nobody in the press, when Eddie mentioned the Trippier situation, picked Eddie up and said, "Well, hang on a minute, Eddie, he's your team captain, and you've taken the captaincy off him for some reason, and you've given it to Bruno. And what's going on there? So you want him to stay? You just want him to be fit? Will he be captain now, or what was the reason why you took the captaincy off him? If that's the case, nobody mentioned that. Let's throw in some conjecture there and say, was that a decision that was made above Eddie? I don't know. I'm just asking the question, guys, because what's come out of it is I'm sitting here thinking, should our mantra now be in Mitchell we trust rather than Eddie we trust? Because it sounds as though Eddie's pointing us in that direction. He's pointing above and he's saying, it's all coming from up there, guys, not from me. Don't ask me these questions anymore. I'm merely the coach. All I want to stick to is the questions that you're not asking us, which is who's fit, who's not fit, how do you think the team's going to perform, what are your expectations, where do you think the problems are going to lie with the opposition? And we got none of that. So I think Eddie's certainly a frustrated man. There's no question about that. And again, with conjecture, we can sit here and say other problems with Eddie alongside people from above. Is the other happy clappers upstairs clapping to a different tune to the one that Eddie is wanting to clap to? Who knows? But I think Eddie, could we honestly say that this is the first time we've seen Eddie Howe in a position in a press conference where he looked as though, you know what, this goldfish bowl, and I've used that phrase because it's a phrase on a football and it's having a bit of a problems that we had in the past. Is this Tyneside goldfish bowl where I'm getting asked every question under the sun, and ridiculous ones like the ones from Wees Keys Louise? Is this getting too much? Is this now? Am I feeling what other managers have felt? Because certainly it's starting to appear as though the knives are out and the honeymoon's over in terms of, Eddie, you're responsible for what's going to happen on the football pitch, but I don't think you're responsible for who you're going to be putting on the football pitch. I think that's something that's coming from above. And it was also, and the reason I'm saying that is he also threw in that little remark, didn't he, at the end about 5 goalkeepers? And he cannot have 5 goalkeepers in his squad, and he's been given a squad with 5 goalkeepers. And he doesn't know what's going on there. He doesn't know which one's leaving. He doesn't know which ones are staying. He doesn't know who he's going to be selecting. He doesn't know who he's going to be naming. We were laughing that there were going to be 2 goalkeepers on the bench last weekend when I was chatting to Joe and George before the game. As it happened, we didn't end up with 2 goalkeepers on the bench, but I think we're pretty close to it. It's at one point in time. But yeah, it's all over the place, Steve. Absolutely all over the place, and it is an important week. And as somebody pointed out, it could end up with a great 8 to 10 days. You know, we could have 3 victories, but it could all turn into a typical Newcastle United shit fest. And where will we be after the Tottenham game? This is life in a black and white shirt now, isn't it, Eddie? This is what you're going to have to put up with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big job and he gets paid well for it. So the stresses and strains of being manager at Newcastle. But so far, so good. 3 points in the bag. We'll be looking ahead to the Bournemouth game, of course, in the second half of the show. But Joe, pick the bones out of that press conference?
I'll just say I was at work and I never saw it, and we'll all move on. It's fascinating listening to you, Steve. We were, from some quarters, almost vilified a little bit about 3 weeks ago when we were talking about things maybe not being as rosy in the garden as you know it has been. Everything since that guy walked through the door, pretty much everything. He's had the Midas touch. You know, I've said that. He's the guy that saved us from relegation. He's the guy that then put us in the Champions League. We had really poor injuries last season, and through it all, still managed to finish in a reasonable position. So nothing's gone wrong for Eddie Howe as such. And then his mates have left, and there's issues with his captain mate. And we're selling young footballers that he had high hopes for because of financial rules. He's got a new boss who some could argue that rightly so is calling the shots, because that's what directors of organisations do. Twinned with the fact that whether it was poor referee and poor performance or whatever the hell happened at St James's Park last Saturday, it was absolutely diabolical. So all of a sudden, from being in a job without any pressure, suddenly there's pressure left, right and centre. We've talked about transparency. We've talked about Darren Eales. We've talked about where does Paul Mitchell's job end and Eddie Howe's start. Have we got the England centre back? Are we actually going to be signing anybody? All of a sudden, pressure. So, yes, he's the consummate professional. Yes, he'll give the PC answers because that's what he does. There was a couple of comments made, you know, just before the season started, wasn't there, where we were kind of thinking, who's calling the shots, who's picking the team? And he's reminded us today that I am just the coach and I've got relatively nothing to do with transfers anymore. And essentially, I don't really know what's going on. But if you want to ask me about Joe Willock's ankle, let's talk about that. It doesn't feel like it's going particularly well. But again, win on Sunday, knock Forest out of the cup, and shove 6 up Spurs again, and with Gahey in the side and Eze and whoever else we're signing, and none of this matters all of a sudden. So who knows? I think the true acid test for this football club, the day that clown Mike Ashley left, the true acid test was going to be, what is it going to be like, and how are we going to respond when it's not going well? And you know, maybe, just maybe, for internal reasons, you know, we are joint top of the Premier League last time I looked, so I'll take that all day long. But you know, if there's disharmony at board level and that's filtering down to the coaching staff, this is your acid test, isn't it? And I think, as Neil said, world-class organisations, you know, if you've got a world-class director of football and world-class executives, and clearly we've got world-class owners, with a world-class manager, surely they'll come up with a world-class solution. Or maybe, just maybe, as I said a few weeks ago, the bookmakers are right and we'll have a new manager shortly. So we'll see.
It's your fault now. Barry Hogan says, heard it from Toon Tipster. Here's signing for the Toon. Spread the news.
260 million, Barry.
I thought you were going to say 260 to 1.
Okay, plenty to come on tonight's Amigos. We'll lighten the mood a little bit with a few tweets. And if this was the BBC Centre at Shepherd's Bush, the mailbag's full, not once but twice this week with tweets. Anyway, this chimp farted in his wallet. Now he's got his gas money, quite handy with the reduced handouts for people with the heating bill. Stu, thanks for this one. He says, if alcohol can damage your short-term memory, imagine the damage alcohol can do. Very good. Very good. Talking of alcohol, thank you to Jimmy for this one. He says, when you and your tree come home drunk.
Yeah.
And when this happens, it's time to go to sleep. I think we've all done this at some point.
Absolutely.
Drop our mobile phones onto our face. And got the spider in this house. And talking to spiders, here's Spider-Man's cousin, Bedbug. Signs, we do get a few signs. This isn't a sign, this is an indentation from a car accident. But it all turned out quite nice, didn't it? At the end. And we get a few of these. Just wanted to share a photo of my wife with her new sunglasses. There she is. And when you find someone who admires and appreciates your juicy meat flat beef curtains, thank you for that one. Anonymous. I've never seen a pair of curtains like that in my life. That guy looks quite happy to see them. A new wipe and wax toilet paper. A few people sent this one in this week. I can feel the agony of using that particular stuff. And don't forget, guys, to walk around your camper van before you leave to drive off. And Stephen Kennedy, thanks for this one. He said it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a tow truck. And a wise doctor once wrote this, lads. A free one-night stand. Not quite what people were imagining when they saw the sign. And Trojan, compare and save. Trojan condoms, $325. And Huggies diapers, $22. There's a lesson in there somewhere in America. Sportsman's Bar, soup of the day is lager. And keep texting on the back of this lorry. See you soon. Free airbag tester.
Oh,
ouch.
On the back of an articulated lorry this week. And in the fiction section in W.H. Smith's The Perfect Wife. And don't tell secrets in the garden. The potatoes have eyes, the corn has ears, and the beanstalk. Very good. Like that one. Good play on words. Please use tongues to pick up pastries. Thanks. And you can get some syphilis in this shop abroad, apparently.
oh yeah.
Looks great. I wouldn't recommend it. No climbing or sitting on ducks. These premises are under video surveillance. No idea what's been going on there. It wasn't Saltwell Park. And for sale, George Foreman Grill, Muhammad Ali DVDs, both boxed. And for sale, teeth. It's not important why, but I'm selling one of my favorite jars of teeth. If you're a big fan of other people's teeth as I am, you'll recognize the bargain to be had. Unbelievable. Another American saying that. That's knocked the panel into silence. Jimmy Moore, another one from Jimmy. Destiny brought these two together in the Olympics. Long Wang. And back in 1975, the Muppet Show predicted what most women would look like in 2024. And I bought my daughter a handbag from Iraq. She said, thanks for the bag, Dad.
Very good.
Wow.
And there were three sisters, Anne, Jan, and Fanny. Anne and Jan went on a double date. Their date said, "Wow, you two have big feet." Anne said, "You should see our fannies. They're massive."
Oh,
Oh, dear me.
Jesus Christ.
And one for the smallest Stephen. Fans. Very good, mate. Like it.
good.
If you have a breakdown in an electric car, you can still use the AA, unless it's a small electric car when you have to use the AAA.
Jesus.
And when I was a kid, they didn't take me to a psychologist. My mum was able to open my chakra, stabilize my karma, and clean my aura with one single slap. And just had some great financial news. It couldn't have come at a better time with the cost of living crisis and the price of everything going up. The kid I sponsor in Africa has been eaten by a lion. And someone just called me phone, sneezed, and then just hung up. I'm getting sick and tired of all these cold calls.
Oh, yeah,
And Stephen Kennedy sent this one as well. Sarcasm doesn't get you anywhere. Me? Well, it got me to the Sarcasm World Championships in Peru in 1998. Really? No. Very good. And we used to do a food section on here when Holly used to be on the show. I very rarely do we get sent anything to do with food these days, but there's some footy scran. £2.60, 80 Corona. I don't fancy that at all, lads. I've got to be perfectly honest.
Oh, it is.
Won't fit in the bun, will it?
No, that's definitely not for me. Something similar in size, a hurricane in America. Thanks, Jimmy. And a highway. I think it's just terrible and disgusting how everyone has treated Lance Armstrong, especially after what he achieved winning 7 Tour de France races while competing on drugs. When I was on drugs, I couldn't even find my bike. And when the universe just hates you, that's very clever. Very clever. Not the tweet of the week. Those of you who watched this morning television will have picked up on this one. Craig Mycock was on this week. Had to have a full penis amputation. What an unfortunate name. And this guy at a football match made people laugh. One leg.
Class.
Very good. Very good. I had a message from someone in hospital this week. He just wanted to give us an update on his zip incident. He says, "Thanks for all the good wishes. After a short spell with our wonderful NHS, he was happy to report he was on the road to recovery." So thanks for that. And this one from Paul Rocky Tune, John Paul, George and Ringo.
Very clever.
Very good. Last couple. One of the apprentices at work has been nicknamed Firestick because he's a couple of minutes behind. Brilliant, that. Not the winner, though. Not the winner. Another Olympic one. Imagine this poor bloke trying to type his email address on a Firestick.
What's he called, Steve?
I'll give that a miss, mate. Agent A, I think we'll call him. Stephen Middlemiss as well, another one from him. This is top 3. He says, "This guy would make a brilliant taxi driver. Pick up and drop off."
Oh, yeah, me.
Number 2 this week, Jimmy Moore. You've put that many in, Jimmy. I had to decide to take a few out. I don't have time to Google lyrics. I sing what I hear. Dancing queen, young and sweet, only 70.
Oh, dear me.
Very good, Jimmy. But the winner this week is this one from Jack Jarvis. What do you want the password to be, Jack? Chicken. It needs to include a capital. Chicken Kiev. Fantastic stuff. If you've got a tweet, send it over to me at Steve Wraith on X, or find the Facebook group NUFC Matters and join it, or find the Facebook page and like it, and you can send them all to there and I'll pick them up as we go along. I've still got an inbox full for next week, so they may fall a little behind, but for now, that is Tweet of the Week. I do not want to spend a night talking about Mark Gahey. I think we've given him too much airtime. So anyone who's asking us about Mark Gahey, I think we'll leave it. And if he comes, he comes. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. That's probably the best thing we can say about Mark Gahey. It's starting to get boring, monotonous. and I think we're all getting sick of it. So we'll ask an important question to Mitch first. Does Mitch keep his budgie in the fridge? I think he means your budgie smugglers, Mitch. Oh, you're on mute.
I certainly don't keep any budgie in the fridge.
Right.
The smugglers have pride of place in the underwear drawer.
Well, there we go. It's a simple answer to a simple question, and nothing confusing about that. Steve Hastie's put something out last season. Whether you can remember this, Steve. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you, go to Joe, and move over in that way. John Askew says last season, Steve Hastie referred to a coach and horses driving through the centre of our midfield. Are you concerned that the 4-3-3 high press might have similar results this season?
Quite possibly. It depends how well, obviously with a 4-3-3, depends how well you've got the at least two of the front three working to drop back to support, and it also depends on how tight you've got your back four and how well they're organised. And there were times when we never defended in a line as part of our central midfield three. We didn't operate with any cohesion. We seem to take a scattergun approach sometimes. If you expect your central midfield to operate as a team, then there were glaring times during last season where they didn't, where they operated as though there was no communication at all with each other, and that was mainly down to the fact that we very rarely had a settled midfield. We had players out injured. We had players slotting in. We had suspensions. We didn't really have a settled side. We also had the added situation of sometimes it would appear that you're playing a midfield five when you're under pressure, which is the way it's supposed to be. But that midfield five is also supposed to support the wing backs or the full backs. Sometimes we had a temptation to drop too deep and sit too close to the lads who were playing in central defence. That can be a problem because you get into each other's space. It's got to be drilled into a team how you want to play and what happens when you're without the ball as well as with the ball. And I do think at times we did drive a coaching horse. Teams could drive a coaching horses through us. And sometimes it was because we were too overambitious, pushing forward. So a lot of things that come into play when you're trying to play a high pressing 4-3-3. I don't know whether with Eddie it's just drilled into his psyche that that's the way he wants his team to play regardless. We did see him try with wing backs before and playing three at the back, and we have seen it work successfully at times, but we have seen it being disastrous. And not just with Newcastle, but with other clubs. But I think a lot of it is down to the personnel you've got. I mean, there was an example in last week's game where we lost the ball and Gordon started running back, and he got the halfway line, then he stopped. It was though he had no energy, he had nothing in his legs. And then, if you remember, Joe Linton went flying past him as though he was on the AA batteries that you were talking about earlier, Stephen, in Tweet of the Week, and he literally won the ball off Brereton Diaz with such ease, and then turned and then started an attack again, and that was more somebody running back and winning the ball back as opposed to being able to stand up in front of the attacking opposition and be able to coax them into a corner or push them or slow them down. I never like to see it when you're having to chase back and chase the ball back and chase the opposition, because you would hope that defensively you're being able to tuck in and you'll be able to fill those spaces and block that situation off. But you could put it down to the players that we had available, the injury problems that we encountered, but it's a lot of it is down to, and if you remember, I mean, we had at one point, I think we only had 14 fit players, and that meant that Eddie only had those 14 players to work with on the training pitch at times. So it was very much a case of getting everybody together on a Friday to see who's going to be available on the Saturday, which makes it very, very difficult to keep the shape and get the message out there and work on something in training before you then face up to the opposition. I listened to Rafa talking many, many times about how he really got into identifying the problems that an opposition could bring to you, and then work on that as much as you work to your own offensive. And I think Eddie struggled at times to be able to get that over because he just didn't have the personnel. I think that was another one of the big issues that we had, Steve.
Okay, what's your thoughts, Joe?
With a fully fit Joe Linton, nobody's driving anything through anywhere, is my very biased opinion. Our midfield's really interesting, isn't it? I agree with Steve there. There were, if you go back the season before, we had such an amazing press. Everybody looked super fit. Everybody knew their rules. It was watertight, and the results were we qualified for the Champions League. Personnel changed last season. I think Sandro Tonali, as much as I hope, is going to be a tremendous signing. I think naturally that kind of upset the status quo, didn't it? You know, is he a 6? Is Bruno the 6? Is Bruno going to be the 10? But then we were signing James Maddison at one point. So then what did that mean? There's something about the roles and responsibilities of the midfield, I think. And I think that's something that we're going to have to, as much as it's great news, and I'm really excited to see Tonali back next week. But I wonder if Eddie Howe's actually come up with a solution to that conundrum yet. Which one's sticking, which one's going? Who's going to run up and down? Who's going to run side to side? And who's going to break into the box? I'd like to think they were all nice problems to have, but fundamentally, I think with the formation, it hasn't changed under Eddie Howe. Very, occasionally it does. But 99% of the time, we play this 4-3-3. So if the formation's not going to change, it's being really clear about what the personnel do within that. If you think we've had Lewis Miley, I'm absolutely not going to open the debate about Sean Longstaff. People have got their own opinions on the lad. Tonali couldn't play and Joe Linton was knackered, and then Bruno lost, as great as he was, but Bruno lost a little bit of the edge and a little bit of the snap and a little bit of the bite because we were petrified that he was going to get a subsequent yellow card and then he would be missing for 2-3 games or whatever. So the midfield has always felt like it was treading on eggshells slightly. This is probably the first transfer window for a little while. We haven't been looking at midfielders. Usually we're linked with a central midfielder or a number 10 of some description. And here we are now thinking, my assumption is that the midfield will consist of Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali is what I assume is going to be the longer term solution. But Eddie's got to be really, really clear about, who's doing what and who is the 8 and who's the 6. If we don't, my concern is that it'll look a little bit more disjointed, and then maybe someone will drive through. The midfield's pivotal now in football. Long gone are the days where you have a big centre half who launches it 80 yards and the big centre forward will knock it down and you bypass your midfield. Everything goes through the middle of the park now. Have we got a better midfield than most? Are we the envy of most Premier League clubs? I would say so. Any midfield with Bruno Guimaraes in and Joe Linton marauding around and Italy's under-21 captain in it, Joe Willett, Sean Longstaff, Lewis Miley when he's fit, there's some reasonably good footballers there. But as Steve said, are the strikers doing their bit? Are the fullbacks tuned in enough? Do we know when to press? Do we know when to hang back? And all of that stuff enhances the midfield offer, doesn't it? So it'll be interesting to watch this space. If it is going to be Tonali and Guimaraes and Joe Linton, where's the link to Alex Isak? Where's the link to Anthony Gordon? Who's got the legs in that midfield to get up and down? And if it's going to be Bruno pushing forward, you know, are we going to leave a gap behind him? And who's going to jump into the tackles? Tonali, as much as he's been training, he's got a hell of a lot of ground up to, you know, he's hardly played any football for us, certainly hasn't played any Premier League football. And other than training, as much as looking at his calves, and, you know, he looks like he's been doing quite a lot of leg work. You know, he's got to play football matches. He's got to get up to speed with the Premier League, and that's not easy for anybody. So, interesting times for the midfield. But I'm relatively confident that, you know, the class always rises to the top, doesn't it? So I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, I would agree. Hey, don't say we never show all the comments in the chat. We show the positives and the negatives. Jody, sorry to lose you, mate. If you feel that you're watching negativity, then maybe you should, you know, maybe watch a few of the other podcasts that are floating around. Believe you me, at least we're not sensationalizing stuff. We're giving our opinion, which is all we've ever done on this channel over the last 4 years. But sorry you feel like that, but we won't be changing anytime soon. So maybe it is best if you know, you unsubscribe and go somewhere else. Good luck finding something that you know, that maybe suits you better than NUFC matters. Mitch, yeah, this whole thing with the you know, the 4-3-3, etc. You know, it was, I don't know whether it was the formation last season. I think a lot of it was to do with a bad luck with injuries. And as we always say on here, we've all got different opinions, Mitch. We've all got different opinions. We don't always agree. The injuries certainly didn't help. The formation that he played the season before got us to Champions League and got us to a cup final. So, you know, there's a yin and a yang with this, but I don't know what, you know, what Eddie's plans are, whether he's going to have a plan B. I think that's always been the thing. He needs a plan B. He needs to be able to change things. And he needs, by his own admission today, needs to change that away form. Oh, you're on mute again, mate. You must have muted yourself.
This is where the discussion about did we need a sitting defensive midfielder to link the defence to the midfield and then onto the attack, and to allow Bruno to go further forward. But I think that formation worked well the season before. And I think the point about making sure that people know what their roles are in that midfield, and to understand, right, well, they're going forward, I should tuck in and cover. And I think as long as everybody understands their role, I think Eddie's quite happy to chuck any combination of three into that midfield without necessarily having a definitive holding midfield player. I think we saw against Southampton. Let's take the first 20 minutes away. What we saw against Southampton in that remaining time was the spirit and the attitude from the season before and the season before. That was missing a little bit last season. And I think the real takeaway for me was that's what you get out of a fully fit Joe Linton. And that was the gamble we took trying to bring him back quickly from that thigh injury he got at the Mams. And he's had a summer to rest. He didn't go away with Brazil. He's been at home. He's come back fully fit, ready to go. And he put an absolute... He's a monster in that midfield. And I don't think any midfield's going to get bullied when he's around. But it's about understanding how that tactic works and how what your role is. You know, we could perm 3 from 7 into that midfield 3. And I don't think Eddie would hesitate to perm any 3 from those 7. Now, Maidie's got experience more. And I think he let's see what he's like when he comes back into the fold. See what improvements he's made in his game. See what physical improvements he's made. And I think when we had Anderson still again, you could perm 3 from 8. And I think you'd be happy to do that. But and I think it is more about It's not about having players of a certain type. However, I think the suggestion that Man City have got to their success playing a very similar system, but the one thing that's been a huge difference for them is having Rodri in that midfield. And now they've brought Gundogan back, who can also do that role, because they've looked so poor in the time when Rodri hasn't been there. And he is what you would maybe call a more defensive-minded sitting midfielder who's the link man that starts everything off. Not quite a quarterback, but you'll find him in between the centre-backs on occasion. And so we don't have the luxury of having that kind of full quality of squad. So we do it a slightly different way, and we take the best attributes of everyone. But last season, I think the combination of injuries, inexperience in certain individuals, and tiredness meant we genuinely struggled. Absolutely, at times. And that was, something beyond our control a little bit. And certainly having Tonali missing for the entire season, just about, was a much bigger blow than I think we realised. And I think that's what we've got coming back in a fully fit Joe Willock, who pre-season looked like he was very happy to be the link to Isaac from that midfield and played very well with him. I think we've got the ability to change it up and change it around. That was something we didn't have last season. We seemed to be constantly replacing like with like. So it was a change, but it was no change. And now I think we've got combinations that you could play there that are genuine change. And I hope that if we sit together and understand our rules, then everybody's going to benefit from that.
What's your views on the formation, George, before we go to the ads?
Well, I mean, Steve knows, probably guesses what I'm about to say. There were two games last year particularly where Steve and I just sat there gobsmacked because for 25 minutes in a game, our midfield was being run by a 17-year-old, raw 17-year-old, because all the big names, the Brunos and the Longstaffs, they just disappeared. And Nottingham Forest and Luton made we look very ordinary. It was cringing to watch Ross Barkley turn us inside out. And the only player that was doing anything, trying to do anything about it, was young Miley. So that typifies where we were last year. But it was all about injury, tiredness, people coming back too soon. And I think people started to understand that. And the plus this season is, of course, we've got them all coming back. We'll have Tonali back. And remember how well he was playing before he had to be suspended. I mean, he played against Aston. The game he's played against Aston Villa was outstanding. If we can get 2 or 3 games out, a season out of him like that, we're going to be a different team anyway. So there's all of that coming back. And the things we've never tried, things Eddie's never tried that I would be tempted to try. Switzerland have a very good defensive centre-back who plays defensive midfield in front of the back four. They call him Shah. And we've never, ever tried to give Fabian Shah that sort of credibility. But the lad's absolutely right. Joe Linton is key. Whatever you do, if you've got a fit Joe Linton, then you can see the opposition shrinking, absolutely shrinking away from when he starts motoring through or he's chasing somebody. You can see them trembling almost from the touchline. So it's important. But we've got options now in a way on the bench that we haven't had for a season and a half. And then they just get better when Tonali comes back. So he's got the riches to try if he wants to that we haven't had last year, and I think we'll be all right. but the poser of the question was right. There were times when you just sat there with your gob open watching what the opposition midfield was doing. And as I say, there were two games particularly. I think it was Luton and Nottingham Forest. And guess what the results were? Nottingham Forest particularly. The only person in midfield that was actually seemed to be trying to control the game at all was young Miley, a 17-year-old, where the others disappeared. The others disappeared. In fact, Bruno nearly got himself sent off. He spent so much time in Forest trying to upset players instead of getting on with his own game. So we don't want any more of that. And I think giving him the captaincy will take that out of him, actually, because he's taking it so responsibly. And I don't think it'll happen this season. It certainly didn't happen on Saturday. We weren't very good on Saturday. We allowed Southampton too much time, even before the Shah business. It was their game. They controlled everything until the last third, and then we just weren't at the races. Let's get those cobwebs out of the system, and we should be all right. But as I say, the big plus this year is you fit Joelinton and a bench that can alter things, can come onto the field and alter things. Where we didn't have that luxury at the end of last year because we didn't have the players to do it with. So I agree with the notion of the question. Is all I'm saying, that there was occasions when it looked like anybody with any pace or any guile could run through the middle. And Ross Barkley's the example. I mean, somebody who's had so many bloody careers. He's had more careers than I have, and yet he tore us apart that day. And it was all because he was just prodding and poking where we were missing people, and people were missing themselves. And as I say, the only person trying to stop it was young Miley. So it's a good question and one worth noting, but I don't think we're in that position this year because we've got personnel back that can solve those problems.
Okay, slightly over halfway through the show. Time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find their website at skipsandbins.com. Contact us, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. They are the Travel and Tourism Award winners in 2024. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts. You can find them at www.media-arts.co.uk. And don't forget, we are a podcast. You can find us on iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel grow, then hit the like button, the little thumb underneath the video, click share and share to your social media, or join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to take out a one-off payment membership, go to nufcmatters.com and hit membership. And for a £25 fee, you get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. You can also put a smartphone over the top of this QR code. It'll take you straight there. And don't forget, we also help the food bank on this channel. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is a website where you can make a virtual donation today.
Okay, don't forget as well, the fanzine is on sale. Thank you to Andrew, who's just bought one tonight. NewcastleLegends.com. Get yourself onto the website. Go to the shop. 4 issues for 20 quid. All proceeds going to Dementia Matters. Thank you for all the kind comments coming in about the podcast. No need for that. We know, that we continue to do what we've always done for the last 4 years, which is be true to ourselves, which is all you can do as a podcaster, and not lead you down the garden path. With regards to the Mark Gahey transfer, which we're not going to talk about tonight, it's quite interesting to see Fabrizio Romano put the comments from Mark Gahey out tonight, which is the reaction he has given to being given the captaincy at Crystal Palace. It looks like he's staying there. If you read that, he's been given the captaincy, looking forward to the season ahead. You would say that is all over now. Is it all over? Who knows? But be a little bit of egg on some reporters' faces who went big yesterday on how close it was and how close it was going to be to getting over the line. Maybe we've wasted too much time on that. Maybe in a week's time we might have a different centre half in. But we will crack on. We won't talk about that tonight. Let's just wait and see what happens over the next 7 days. Thank you, James, for that. He says, this is always one of the highlights on a Friday. Thank you guys for all the entertainment you've provided for me over the last 3 years. Thanks, James, and thank you for your constant tweets, although I've got to be honest, mate, a lot of the tweets that you send I can't put up. I have to be very careful what I put up. Steve C as well says, I watch most of the Newcastle content on YouTube. He says, I need to get a life, but NUFC Matters is the best sensible grown-up debate. Thank you very much for that, mate, as well. And Croc the Crocodile, interesting name. Thank you for the donation to the Malverno Fund. Our best front three is Isaac, Gordon and Barnes. I don't think you'll get many disagreements in there, mate, at all. And Sean asked a question. He says, with Tino Hall doing well, should we forget about Gahey and go for more Chelsea players? Maybe Chalobah, Madeki, and possibly Sterling. Again, it's all conjecture, isn't it? The transfer window. Lots of stuff to decide.
Wouldn't give Chelsea fresh air, never mind money.
I know there's a lot of people saying that as well. But we will wait and see what happens over the course of the next 7 days. I'll be delighted when it's over. That's the one thing I will say. Okay, as always, plenty to get through on a Friday night. And it's time for a few of these. Okay, the lookalikes tonight. Rita Maria Jackson, thank you for that. Not forgetting Steve Hasty. Yes, Steve, take your pick. Which one is you, Steve?
I'll take any of them. Doesn't really matter, does it? She's going to keep sending them.
It doesn't matter. What about this one? Ozzy Osbourne and some woman on a train.
Yeah, that.
Pretty good. Cucurella and one of the Gibb brothers.
Ah,
yeah.
See that.
And Charlie Dimmock and Mick Hucknall.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A motorbike and the donkey of Shrek. And Robert De Niro and Mike Reed. Run around. Remember that?
Nah.
Jim Dale and Spike Milligan from Mike Haig.
Aye.
This is a good one from Alan Brown. Katie Price and This House. I don't think that's her teeth, and I think Neil would have to do something with them.
That's allegedly our teeth have been prepped for the crowns she's had, and if that's the case, whoever did them's over-prepped them by a fucking country mile.
Wow. Unbelievable. A young Michael Fish and Reese from EastEnders.
Yeah, very good.
And John McGinn and Blaster from Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. Don't think John McGinn's going to be too happy with that. Jim King sent this one. Suggs and a young Christopher Walken.
Let's see that.
We always get one of these. And why people send them in, I don't know. It's like some kind of bizarre thing that people like to do. Liam Gallagher and Claudia Winkleman.
Yeah, very good. Very clever.
And Mike Tyson, Idris Elba, and their two nemesis lookalikes at football match this week.
Classic that.
Very good.
It is.
I pity the tool, Mr. T. And here we've got Some Rioter and Brian Adams.
Yeah, very good.
We get sent a few ice cream ones nowadays. Here's a Kid Off the Goonies and a Magnum bar.
Half melted Magnum.
Oh,
And this woman in the street, unfortunately, has the look of Sam Allardyce.
Oh, yeah.
And this is another one from Rita, Cheating Diaz and Muckle Plate Bigfoot.
oh, hey, he's got to get hammered forever, isn't he?
Top three, though, this week. Roger Daltrey and a parrot and Rod Hull and Emu.
Hey, that's spooky, that.
And honestly, I'm going to give these both number one because these are both great. First of all, this one from Chris Campbell, Kevin Keegan and a woman on a toothpaste advert. So well done, Chris. You're a winner this week. And this one's from my pal Mickey. Happy 82nd birthday to Paul McCartney.
Nice.
Lewis Capaldi.
Very close. Yeah.
Lewis Capaldi, it's another classic guy. It could be anybody that. It's anybody's grandma, actually. So happy birthday to her. Anyway, if you've got some lookalikes, send them to me on X at Steve Wraith, or get yourself onto the Facebook group, NUFC Matters, or the Facebook page, NUFC Matters. Stick them on there and we'll pick them up. Some really good ones this week. It feels like the lookalikes certainly are on the way back up. Okay, we have a game to look forward to, and it is Newcastle United travelling down to Bournemouth for their second game of the season. And we've got a full complement this week. With it being an away game, I'm delighted to welcome back Scunny Mag.
Hi folks, Scunny Mag Paul here with your first away day guide of the new season. This one's for Bournemouth. It's coming up next. For those travelling down by train, Bournemouth Station is the obvious one. There's one slightly closer to the ground on the local service called Folkestone, so either of those are a good shout. And if you're driving down looking for parking, there's a small car park at the club. You have to show a match ticket and then it's £1, but it does fill up very quickly. And failing that, there is a commercial car park on the top of the Sovereign Centre, which is a shopping complex nearby. Postcode for that's Bravo Hotel 1 4 Sierra X-Ray, and your what 3 words for the entrance is wages, bonds, learn. I should set you back around 2:50 for the afternoon. If you're making a weekend of it and staying over, it's a seaside destination, so there's loads and loads of hotels, B&Bs and the like. And as for recommendations, we didn't manage to get into this one this time, but from last time I went, I can recommend the Treville Hotel. It's on Prairie Road, postcode Bravo Hotel 2 5DH. They're on all the TripAdvisor, Booking.com, this, that and the other. If you want to contact them directly, the phone number is 01202 552262. And your what 3 words for the front of the hotel is Punk Love Allows. The reason I recommend this is the bar is very well priced. It's 24 hours for guests. That worked for us. It's quite central. But anyway, moving on. Once you're settled in, you want to find an away-friendly pub. If you go into the Folkestone station, there's one just on the corner, right outside it. It's called the Bell, and you can find that at Easy Event Claims. And then further back towards the Sovereign Centre, if you're parking there, these two are handy for that one. Directly across the road from each other, you've got Mellow Mellow and Maroy's Bar. Both welcome away fans. Find Maroy's at Glue Gravy Proper. If you want Mellow Mellow instead, it's straight across the road, or if that one's full. Once you're ready to head up the ground, it's 5 or 10 minute walk through the estate. Just follow the Bournemouth fans. You'll be heading to the right of the ground as you approach it. You'll see the floodlights first because it's quite a small ground. And the away turnstiles for the Cherries can be found at Post Public Cherry. Enjoy your day in Bournemouth. Hope you come away from Dean Court with 3 points. Have a cracking weekend. I've been Paul. I'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, Paul. Good to have you back. And thanks for your article for the fanzine as well. Look forward to seeing you soon. And next up, it is our friend from Bulgaria, Tune Stado.
Hello NUFC Matters. The stats before the game against Bournemouth on Sunday. Newcastle has a chance to win back-to-back games at the start of the season for the first time since 1997, when we won 2 games in a row, both at home against Sheffield Wednesday and Aston Villa under Kenny Dalglish. Actually, Newcastle hasn't won the first 2 games of a season both home and away, since the start of the 95-96 season. Now, when it comes to Bournemouth in particular, this is one of the 3 clubs that Eddie Howe has never won against in the Premier League. With Newcastle, he has played them 4 times, with 3 draws and 1 defeat last season. The other 2 clubs are Manchester City and Luton. We all know the scores from last season. Now, Newcastle has lost only 1 game against Bournemouth in their last 9 games, which is the game that I mentioned from last season. But at the same time, Newcastle has not registered a clean sheet against Bournemouth for 11 games in a row. Somehow, Bournemouth always seems to score against us. On the other hand, Bournemouth has no win in their last 8 games in the month of August, the last win coming 2 years ago in 2022. So there are some positive signs, there are some negative signs. Let's see what will happen on Sunday. Away the lads.
Great stuff, as always. Thank you, chaps, for your review. So, yes, Newcastle do take on Bournemouth, 2 o'clock kick-off this coming Sunday. It is live on Sky Sports, 1,350 away places at the Vitality Stadium, as you would expect. Sold out. Luckily, no train strikes this weekend, but do keep an eye on train times and departures, because things can change on an hour-to-hour basis. So make sure you do check if you're travelling down there. As always, we just give you an update on who's available after Eddie's press conference. Jamal Lascelles, Sven Botman, Lewis Miley, Callum Wilson, all sidelined, and Fabian Schär joins Sandro Tonali on the suspended list. And there is an early return to his former club for Lloyd Kelly. Be interesting to see how and when he features. As for Bournemouth, well, the Cherries kicked off their season with a 1-1 draw at Nottingham Forest. They are unbeaten at home in their opening home game in all competitions since the 2017-2018 season. Last year, of course, we fell foul of a brace from Dominic Solanke. He is no longer a Bournemouth player, so we won't be doing that to us, but they do have a replacement. Evan Nielsen is expected to make his debut after his £40 million transfer from Porto. He's a Brazilian international, and he last played alongside, actually made his debut for Brazil alongside Bruno Guimaraes last June for Brazil. Referee, well, it's David Coote, the Nottinghamshire-based official. He hasn't taken charge of a Magpies game since the 22-23 season. His last game was the 6-1 home win over Spurs, 2 months after the 2-0 defeat by Manchester United in the Carabao Cup final. VAR is Tim Robinson. Okay, as always, Toonstato these days sits with us for the full show, but we do have his music to play because he does have a little bit of work to do. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Stephen. How does Scunny Mag get like graphics and things flying in and out and all that? I've got to put a background on because I never tidy the kitchen up.
You need to get. I'll introduce you to him by WhatsApp, and he'll sort one out for you, I'm sure.
Is there a union or so? Do I complain now? Shocking that. Right, okay, so here we go then. What are the bookmakers saying about Sunday's game? They may or may not have seen us last Saturday, but naturally, I guess in their eyes, Newcastle are the clear favourites to pick 3 points up on Sunday. We are 5-4 to win the game away from home. The draw is 14-5, so around 3-1 if you think we'll come away with a point. And if you think the home team will win, you can get 2-1. Bournemouth to win the game. In terms of the goal scorers, naturally, it's the usual suspects and the prices are very similar to last week. So to score any time in the game, Alexander Isak is the favourite, and you can get just over evens for that. Anthony Gordon, who I actually tipped last week, I don't know what was wrong with him. I couldn't work out whether he played well, whether he was trying hard, or whether he was just abysmal. I couldn't work it out. But he's there at 12-5. Joe Linton to continue his goal scoring streak is 11-2. And then just out of interest, Big Dan Byrne at the back stick is 12-1. And Lloyd Kelly on his very quick return to Bournemouth is 16-1. The usual suspects are on that list for Bournemouth, so Semenyo and Clivert. You can get just over evens if you think they'll score. And a player that I quite like every time I've seen him is Philip Billing, and he's 3-1. 1-0 Newcastle, 11-1. 2-0 Newcastle is 12-1, and 2-1 is 17-2. If you think it'll be a draw, you can have 13-2 for ones each. And if you think there'll be a 2-all draw, that's 12-1. 14-1 if you think that Bournemouth will win 1-0, and 11-1 if you think it'll be 2-1 to the home side. Some interesting bets just from around the book. Anthony Gordon to assist the goal is 7-2. A yellow card for Joe Linton is 11-5. A red card in the game on either side is 15-4. If you think there'll be a penalty in the game, you can get 9-5. And my bet this week, which I thought was relatively decent for the price, a Sean Longstaff shot on target is just over evens. Take care of your money, guys. We are fancied, but you'll have to go some to get a decent return. Sean Longstaff shot on target and Newcastle to win 2-1. That's what I'm going for.
Okay, thanks for your research. As always, lots of people asking questions, but you'll have to go onto other channels, go onto some betting websites to get your penmans and stuff like that. Breaking news from an England point of view: Ashley Cole, Julian Lescott, and Tim Dittmar will join Lee Carsley's interim backroom staff with England's senior men's team. So Lee Carsley getting a few of his friends in. A few jobs for the boys. Be interesting to see how they perform in their next game under the new ownership, and Gareth Southgate, of course, moving into a cushy little job with UEFA. So all change there. But
sorry, Steve, 16-1 the penman.
16-1. There you go. That's for Roger, who was asking for that. Okay, George, trip to Bournemouth, 2-0 defeat there last season, and it's the away form that really did cause us a few problems, as well as the injury list last season. Thoughts going into this game?
Well, it also was the game where we saw the frustrations both on and off the pitch boil over when Trippier spent a long time arguing with fans or discussing things with fans. So we don't want to be any more of that. We're not in that position. I'm looking forward to the game. Let's hope they got rid of the cobwebs against Southampton. The one thing they did show against Southampton is that we're going to be very, very difficult to score against if we can play like that again. And I'm confident that we'll go. And do you want a prediction, or we're doing that?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, George, yeah, you can do.
Well, I'm confident enough to think that we'll come away with a 2-0 victory. It's time that Eddie broke his duck against Bournemouth. It's time we broke our duck against Bournemouth. And the odds for me are it'll happen this weekend. I was interested in who Bournemouth bought to replace Solanke, because in my opinion, they bought a player who on form is twice what Solanke is. So they've used their money wisely, in my opinion. So he'll have to be watched if he's playing, and I presume he will be. I hope we get a comfortable win and we get the chance to give some. If the young ones are on the bench, the Mileys and people like that are on the bench, then they might get a run out. And even young Sanusi, if he's on the bench, yes.
You mean his younger brother? Yeah, not
yes,
Lewis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the kid's been doing well in every opportunity he's got, so why not give him a chance on the real stage, instead of a pretend stage, as it were. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll get a comfortable victory and come out of it feeling better than we did last week.
Okay, Mitch, it's another return to the Vitality Stadium for Eddie Howe. It was another one of those things that was mentioned in the press conference today. I mean, I can't remember who it was, but they said, does this game not feel as much pressure now? Because, obviously the first time he went back as Newcastle manager, there was clearly pressure. But this time round, it's that's not an issue anymore. But he still said, every game is difficult away from home.
Yeah, of course it is. It's Premier League. That's the very simple thing to say, and it's very true. What I would just like to see is the level of effort and the level of commitment and togetherness was showed, and then add to that a correction of the level of play and style of play that was absent. We've got a real opportunity to make a statement. And yeah, last season's away form was poor, but the away form the season before was quite the opposite. So, what we did last season's almost irrelevant. It's all about what's happening now. The present is the only thing that we have an opportunity to change. And so, clean slate, start with a clean sheet, start with number one goalkeeper in place, and we certainly look better with him in. And it's the classic, if it was on paper, we should be able to put a team like Bournemouth away, but that's not how football works. Never is. You have to earn that right. I think we showed against Southampton we've got the fight to earn that right. But it would be nice to wrap it up with a bit of additional style and the class that we know that some of these players have.
I'm laughing at John Spencer's comment. Sorry, Mitch. He's just asking if George is related to the Mileys. Good. Well, listen, he's a fan of them, that's for certain. But yeah, I mean, this fixture really is. It surprises me, Mitch, on how few times we've actually played them. We only really played against them from 63, 64. We've played what? Let me have a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. That's all we've played against them.
Mad. But because of the connections with not just with Eddie, but we've had player connections obviously as a result too. We've got one tomorrow. So it just takes on a slightly different meaning in some respect. But it doesn't really to me. I think it's just another away game in the Premiership, but they are tough. That's why the Premiership's the best league in the world. And it's okay. It's not the era where everybody went down on the bus and you were knackered and what have you. But I think you earn the right to perform. You've got to put that fight together. We showed we've got that. So bring it on.
Do you think Kelly might get a chance tomorrow, Mitch?
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him into the maybe he's even into the left back role. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise us. Genuinely wouldn't surprise us.
Okay, what's your views on this? How do you think it's going to go? Oh, you've got the dates.
I'm on the move again soon.
Yeah.
And so this turned up.
Brilliant.
In a bag it should never have been in, but there you go. So the dice is saying 2-1 to Bournemouth.
2-1 to Bournemouth. Okay. What are you saying?
A scrappy, horrible, hard-fought 1-0 win to the Mighty Mags.
1-0 win to Newcastle from Mitch. Okay, Steve. I think the top you're wearing tonight, Steve, I think that was the top we probably wore when we played them in the 80s, in the late 80s.
Yeah, it's the barcode one. It's the one on,
That might have been that might have been that infamous FA Cup game,
Wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's this particular shirt, mind.
No, all right. Okay. just has it's a feeling of that era. But I was at that game. I was actually at that game, and all I remember being in the West Stand paddock, and I remember the game starting in fog and not being able to see from one side of the pitch to the other. And my dad, who had a bit of experience sitting alongside my granddad as a referee assessor over the years, said, "Well, this game shouldn't go ahead." He said, "If they can't see the flag on the other side of the pitch, this game shouldn't go ahead." And basically, you couldn't see the linesman from one side to the other. You had to kick the game off. Newcastle's board of directors insisted that they kick the game off because I think there was about 22,000 people there who paid the price to get in. So they played the game until half time. Literally, we never saw anything because it was so foggy. And at half time, the whistle went, and then it came over the crackly tannoy that the game was being abandoned. So Newcastle at that point were thinking we don't have to refund the money, but that wasn't the case. Fans went mental. It kicked off. No social media in them days. The box office must have been stowed off with people going up there and threatening to do this and threatening to do that, and people on the phone. So anyway, the game had to be played again at St James's Park. And it was a terrible attendance. If I remember rightly, it must have been around about 8,500, 9,000 who went. But it was typical Newcastle in them days. Anyway, I digress. Bournemouth away this weekend. What's your view, Steve?
I can remember that really, really well, Steve. And there was absolute ructions on because, like you say, it went round like wildfire that if this game kicked off and it got to half time, they didn't have to give the money back. It was absolute hell on. I'll never forget it. This game. Well, this is the sort of game. Second game of the season, first away game. We talked about last weekend. We talked about performance. We talked about it being a little bit iffy. But this is a sort of game where Newcastle United have to stamp their authority. They have to show that the main business this season. They've got no European football to deflect them in any way, shape, or form. They've got to be able to go out there and show that they can travel away and they can come away with 3 points. That is vital. If you have aspirations to get back into European football, then you need to be going to Bournemouth and you need to be coming away with 3 points. And that's what Eddie should be having drilled into him, and that's what should be drilled into his squad. And I'm sure it will be. And I think that he'll set up accordingly to make sure that they come away with 3 points. That's my expectation. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, a hard-fought 1-0 win, no doubt, but a 1-0 win in Newcastle United. I think Lloyd Kelly will play as left back. I think Hall will drop to the bench. I thought we saw in the second half last weekend that Lloyd Kelly was straight into the mix. Very rare that you see that with a substitute. But he wasn't tentative in any way, and I thought he slotted it in. In fact, I think we looked a little bit tighter, even though Hall had a decent game and he made some decent clearances. There were occasions during that game where he gave the ball away, and you cannot give the ball away consistently like he was doing last weekend. And I think that, especially when you're down to 10 men, that made it just doubly more difficult, and it caused a lot of anxiety on the touchline. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kelly start, and I wouldn't be surprised at 16-1. I've gone to 1-0, which is 11-1, but a 16-1 Kelly goal, that would just be the icing on the cake, wouldn't it, for the lad, making his full debut for the club at his old ground and coming away with a goal, and many Newcastle fans coming away with a tenner on that at 16-1. So that's my prediction, Steve.
Yeah, and Mark's saying that I introduced you, Joe, as Toon Statue. If I did, it's no the wonder. I've had a great week this week. I actually said bye to Julie last night. She wasn't going anywhere. It was actually Truls who was going, and I said bye, Julie, and she went, "What are you saying bye for?" Anyway, then it caused complete pandemonium in the chat. So then I just decided to say bye randomly to people. So at one point I said bye to Tom. Tom was going, "I'm not going anywhere." So anyway, it's a running joke in the chat.
You said bye to us a few times on Saturday, and then still got another drink in.
Classic. So anyway, Jim, we'll call you for the final part of the show. Wait for Mark Slavin to tell us I called you Jim. Anyway, Oh, look, here we go. He didn't know. He says he didn't notice. Don't worry about it. Now he knows, Mark. So it could have been our secret. Now I've embarrassed myself on the airwaves. Anyway, Jack, give us your views on the Bournemouth away game.
Don't worry, Mark. I noticed. I clocked it, mate. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I'm the good-looking one with a funny accent. Andre's the other one. Yeah, the game. I honestly thought we'd have. I expected us to come out of the traps flying on Saturday, and we didn't. But we won the game. Bournemouth ground out a reasonable result against Forest in a result that was kind of expected, a 1-1 draw there. So who knows? Like Mitch said, on paper we'll beat them. We'd beat them 100 times out of 100, but we're not playing on paper. I would like to think with Isaac, and if Anthony Gordon gets another 10-15%, finds a bit of his sparkle back, we should have too much up front for him. But who knows? It's the start of the season. You can't predict anything. You get wild and wonderful results till probably 6-7 games into it, and then things start to settle down. But I agree with some of the comments. I agree with what the lads are saying. If we've got aspirations for European football again, these are the fixtures that you pick out and say, do you know what? Whether we beat them 4-0 or whether we grind out the 1-0, as Neil's suggesting, it doesn't matter. This is about 3 points, and teams like Manchester City, etc., they go to places like Bournemouth and they come back with 3 points, and that's what Newcastle United need to do. So, if it has been a fractious week, what a good way to put it right. We'll only be talking about the football come Sunday. So I said in my little piece there that I think we will win. I think we're good enough to score at least 1 goal, but as Andre said, and our record dictates down there, they're always good for a goal against us as well. So I'll take anything. I'll take anything from 1-0 to 7-0. Realistically, it'll be 2-1 is what I'm going to stick with. The most important thing is we don't get beat and then set up a bit of pressure going into the League Cup. And then God knows what's going to happen against Tottenham. So let's be positive. Let's get 3 points. Let's stay top of the Premier League and let's keep it going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to go for a draw tomorrow, Sunday. Sorry, I think there'll be goals. I think it'll be 2-2. I'm not confident about winning down there, but I still think Newcastle have got more than enough to get a point down there, and I just think there'll be goals. For some reason, a lot depends, of course, on what he decides to do at the back. Eddie doesn't tend to make mass changes, especially when you've won a game. No matter how you've won it, he doesn't tend to make mass changes. We know he's got to make one, and it's going to be a key move. I would predict he's probably going to play Kraft and Byrne alongside each other as the centre halves and play Livramento right back. And at left back, it'll be Lewis Hall. I do think if he's going to make another change, he'll take Lewis Hall out of that left back position, and he'll play. He'll go for the sentimental Lloyd Kelly return and give him the opportunity. It may well even be a case of giving him the captaincy on his return. Who knows? I doubt he'll do that after all the after the whole palaver that we've had today at the press conference. Otherwise, it'll be another caption, won't it? But it's I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. So we've now obviously got the League Cup as well, second round of the League Cup, because we're not in any European football. Just can't believe it, lads, that we've got another away draw. So, Joe, I'll go with you first on this one. Another away draw in the cup competition. I mean, it's some kind of record, isn't it? Especially when we've been looking at Manchester United, for example, getting continuous home draws. It's no wonder we feel a little bit cynical.
It's I mean, again, we're back to our conspiracy theories, and when we promised we wouldn't do this ever again. I mean, and for us, we're really, really privileged. We get to go to St James's Park, don't we? And the cup draws coming. It's the start of the season. We've had no football for 3 months. Great. We'll get a nice home draw against, a League Two side and off we'll trot. And of course, we're going to face Elliot Anderson, with a point to prove, and Chris Wood, who just ripped us apart on Boxing Day, if you remember. So, But again, a little bit like I've just said about the league game, if we've got aspirations to go back to Wembley, you need to be going to Forest and turning them over, you know. I'm led to believe, thankfully, there won't be any replays. It'll be done and dusted on the night, however that goes. I'm guessing it'll be all about Sandro Tonali, won't it? Is what I think it's going to be about. But there is a cup tie to win. But yeah, we pay this extra money now, don't we, to be guaranteed our cup tickets and all that. But actually, it never costs you anything because we never get a home tie. So I just hope that if we get a cup run, we'll get the important games at home, and they'll be the ones that count towards the trophy. So we need to go to Forest and we'll beat them. So chin up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've just been checking out the facts on that game, and Ian Crone, you're right. The attendance for the Bournemouth Cup tie, in which we lost on penalties after a 2-2 draw, was 25,954. So it was actually the game that we all went to on the original game, which got abandoned, was 0-0. And that was in front of 10,651. So I knew there was a low attendance, but it was the game where it should have been called off. It was actually 10,651 people there. So interesting stuff, interesting stats. Yeah, I mean, these away cup draws, Steve, we should just get used to it. And I mean, again, I've heard people calling it a difficult tie. I mean, it is a difficult tie. It's another Premier League club, for God's sake. You've got to show a bit of respect for Forest. But really, Newcastle should be going down there looking to get a result.
Yeah. Yet again, since we brought out this membership scheme, we haven't had a home cup tie. It's unbelievable, isn't it? You're right. I mean, this is what I'm getting at about the Bournemouth game, and this is another game where you've got aspirations to go further. For me, the League Cup or the Carabao Cup, whatever you want to call it, it's an important fixture for Newcastle United. It's an important competition. We're not in any other competitions other than the FA Cup. So it's a competition that we should be targeting, and I'm sure we are targeting. It's just unbelievable that yet again we keep getting Premier League teams in the draw, and we keep getting away ties in the draw. I mean, Joe's going to open a book on it soon, isn't he? And we're going to have all the odds and everything. Crazy. But yeah, we've got to go there. We've got to... Everything's geared up. Everything's geared up for us to be able to, like you say, you've got Chris Wood there and Elliot Anderson, and they're against their old club and all that type of thing. But we just knock all that out of our head. We go there. We treat it as a Premier League game. We treat it as a one-off and just go for it. Because we want to carry on in a cup competition, and come the end of whatever it is, beginning of March or the end of February, we want to be down there. We want to be at Wembley, and we want to be, 90 minutes away from a trophy. That's what it's all about at Newcastle United. We need that monkey off our back, and the League Cup is a great opportunity. First opportunity this season to start to really, really stamp home and show that we mean business. We need to be showing that we need business in all games, but the League Cup is very, very important for us, I think. And it's one of those competitions where we've had success in the past in terms of we've had some tremendous performances, but it's getting to that final notch, if you like. And we enjoyed the cup final 2 seasons ago, but now we want to take that one step further, and we want to be going to a cup final, and we want to be playing someone lesser than us as well. We want to be playing a team that's not in the Premier League, or a team that you wouldn't normally expect to be getting the cup finals. That's the other thing. Whenever we get to a cup final, we're playing a Man United or we're playing an Arsenal. It's absolutely crazy.
Chasing a treble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I did have a little chuckle when I was listening to Lee Riders, like aftermath of the press conference, Mitch, because he was talking about being drawn away to Forest and most difficult tie in the round, and etc., and could have done with being drawn against one of the lesser teams. And I'm thinking, you know what, Lee, you would have been sitting there if it had been against one of the lowest possible teams that would have been drawn against, going, and of course it's a potential banana skin for Newcastle United. Yeah. We'll go back to Hereford and Exeter City or whatever, you'd be like, you cannot win, really.
Because he's a fan.
Exactly, I know, and that's just the way it would be. But yeah, I mean, it's another away draw. I think that's the point. I'm not really focused on the Forest. We'll do that later. We'll do that later next week. But yeah, it's another away draw. That's the point I was trying to make.
Something like what 8th away draw in a row in all cup competitions.
Yeah,
I know the desire of the human brain to see patterns and things. We always see patterns and things that are truly random.
yeah.
But even I'm getting a little bit like, really? 8 in a row? 8? And I think conversely, I think Chelsea have had 9 home draws in a row. Or something like that. You do start to wonder. And that's the frustration for me. We kind of seem to catch a break. But then again, like you say, people would be saying, potential banana skin if it was away at somebody lesser, and would be complaining if we ended up, well, what was who did we squeak through against? Was it Newport?
Yeah.
A couple of seasons ago. I think I'd rather be having a real good go and being made to play at our best to keep the momentum going, if we've got some momentum after Bournemouth, than worrying about putting out a weakened team and relaxing a bit too much and then ending up dumping out the cup like that way. So you can't have your cake and eat it. The nature of cup football is that's the draw. That's who you're playing. Get on with it. Put them away, even if it's, a 1-0 win with the ball coming off of Mealcraft's arse. Don't care. Doesn't matter about the nature of the win. It's just a win. See, the same with the way we look at the Southampton game. The history books will just say 1-0 Newcastle. You'll have to dig into it on a website in 3 or 4 years' time to understand the nuances of the game and the relevances of it. So, same with the cup. Get past them. We've got the squad and the ability to get past them. Go there with a positive mindset and keep the tempo up.
George, in another away draw.
Yeah, it's not suspicious to me that they've got a freezer box inside their fridge of the Premier League and our ball stays in it all the bloody time, and so they know where to find it. No, seriously, it is one of those, as Neil says, one of those random things that eventually does make you think twice. But that's the nature of randomness, isn't it? You get all one thing and all another, and in between you get all the other things. So that's the nature of randomness. Philosophically about cups, you've got to beat who they put in front of you if you're going to win it. So let's get a Premier League team out of the way so that the next time we get a better draw. Is one way of looking at it. I'd be very, very disappointed if we don't beat Forest. We should be up to beat them, whatever team we're playing. And I'm sure that's what the outcome will be. Are we taking the forecasts? Or
No, we'll be looking at that later next week, mate. Okay, right. Time for this music. Two legends and a bloke called Joe on these photos. Here's Lenny Walker and John Beresford. And here's Joe and John Beresford.
Good looking lads.
How was John doing after his bike mishap? He looked a bit better than he did the last photograph I saw.
He looked and sounded like he'd had an excellent afternoon, Steve.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah.
A couple of great photos got sent us. I never get sick of seeing this one. We've been, we do delve into retro stuff. That's the old Gallagher toilets.
Siri, Show me a photo you can smell and taste.
Yeah, that's what for those millennials out there, that's what the toilets used to be like at St James's Park. Yes, that's right. There's no roof. And yes, that's where we had to go to the toilet.
And nowhere to wash your hands.
Exactly. Nowhere to wash your hands.
Do you remember when Match of the Day came, when we played Man United in the Cup? And the pan across the top of the Gallagher, and you could see everybody lined up against the wall.
It was literally one of the only grounds in the first two divisions that actually had trees still growing in it. Unbelievable days. And this photo is circulating on a couple of Facebook pages. This is apparently underneath the stands at St James's Park. The old Gallagher steps are still there. So there's a little bit of history for everybody. And I have noticed a little bit of chat in the chat tonight about the latest survey the club have sent out. If you're a season ticket holder, you'll have got it. Well worth sending it in. It made us think of the Flintstones. There's obviously some issue going on at a certain part of the ground with ballast, rubble, bags, which are getting in people's way. So they've just simply sent a survey out to ask if you're being affected by it by going into the match. But it's well worth filling in just for the hilarity of it. But we did ask for communication from the club. We're certainly getting it on everything. And that one is well worth filling in if you're a season ticket holder. Anyway, I did promise you a little bit of this. What's long and hard and makes women groan? Yep, it's an ironing board. Thank you, Elliot, for that one. And I will read a couple of comments out. Paul says, has someone left citing negativity? I've just, has he not watched the other Newcastle YouTubers? He says, I come here for straight talk and opinion. That's exactly what this show delivers. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for subscribing to the fanzine as well. Darren, somebody who often has alternate views in the chat to what we're saying on screen, but always does it very respectfully, says, this channel's the best one going. You do a lot for charity, Steve. There isn't any foul language. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Funny.
Thank you, Darren. Tim gets the message of the day. 3 words, Craig Pawson Clown. Very, very good. And Mozza says, there are many opinions on this channel. Not all are right, but all are valid. Everyone's opinion matters, and that's what makes it great. Hit the thumb up, subscribe to share your views. It is free. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in tonight. We are back in the morning with something a bit different. Another one of those fans programs. This time we'll have Julie on from the Dubai Mags. Mitch is also on there, but says very little. Not very often you hear Mitch say nothing. But Julie was so good at talking, we didn't really need Mitch there. But tune in to find out a bit more about the Dubai Mags. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then on Sunday...
Joan, she deserves all the plaudits for the hard work she's put in getting us visibility as Dubai Mags, not just here, but around the world.
Yeah. So tune in tomorrow morning. Half an hour show. Wait a minute, George. And then on Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, we are doing the professionals live because obviously we've got a game that day. So it'll be at 10 o'clock till 11:30 for the professionals. And then we are still going to do Three's a Crowd with the Newcastle, Sunderland and Borough connections all together. That'll be at 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock on Sunday. And then I'll be able to sit down and watch the match. Okay, George, as often, you like to have the last word on a Friday. So go on. What do you want to say?
Well, there's not time, I don't think. I wanted to come back on the Miley thing and explain why I'm so keen on the Miley situation.
Keep it for Monday, George. Keep it for Monday. Right. There's a glass of red wine with my name on it, and I think everyone's starting to leave the chat. So we'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, bright and early. Until then, thanks for watching. Take care. Good night. God bless.
See you, everybody. Thank you.